let yourself shine. It sounds so wonderful and simple, doesn't it? But of course, as human beings, we all have habits and patterns that we continually slip into that get in the way of us being who we could be. I'm Andrew Kane from roadsbackhome.co.uk, and I particularly help people around people pleasing, codependency, rescuing, perfectionism, those habits where you're putting so much effort into looking after someone else or something else that you're blocking up the kinds of things that you could be yourself. And in this video, I want to show you a very simple model that will help you spot when things are going awry and give you some simple strategies to step out of stuck patterns so that you're ready to be the kind of person that you can be. To give you my sources, this is from a psychologist called Stephen Karpman, who called it the drama triangle, and also a book by David Emerald called The Power of TED, where TED stands for the empowerment dynamic, and his ways of stepping out of that stuck drama triangle. I'm going to give you my spin on that right now. If you find it interesting and useful, then go check out David Emerald's book. So let's crack on with our first picture, which is of a 1980s cartoon featuring a character called Dudley Do-Right. Now, Dudley Do-Right is the Canadian Mountie there on his horse riding backwards. And he's called Dudley Do-Right because he always wants to do the right thing. He's always trying to save the damsel in distress there, Nell Fenwick, who's tied to the railway tracks by the evil villain, Mr. Snidely Whiplash. And the three of them are stuck in an eternal struggle between them. The good guy, the bad guy, and the damsel in distress. And these kind of three points of a triangle come up again and again and again in our stories, in our myths, and in our lives. We can go back 2,000 years to St. George and the dragon. So St. George is literally the knight in shining armour. The dragon's like the bad guy, and the princess who St. George is rescuing is the damsel in distress, the helpless victim. And just because of our history, it's been presented in these as a good guy and a bad guy and a damsel in distress. But the truth is that we can all slip into any of those roles in our lives and get ourselves stuck. So I'm going to just talk about that in a little more detail and show you how damaging it can be and how you can get out of it. So our first character is this one, who Stephen Karpman calls the persecutor, who's saying essentially, I'm going to make you suffer. So it could be a bully, it could be someone who's been mean and critical, but the power of this model is it could also be a situation like someone losing their job, or it could be a bad habit like drinking too much alcohol or gambling too much, or it could even be the negative voice that people have in their heads that's making them suffer. But of course the persecutor can't act alone. He or she needs to have a victim to persecute. So as the second part of our trio here is the victim who's saying, I'm helpless, it's helpless, there's nothing I can do. The person who's not willing to step into their power and do things to try and improve the situation, to stand up to the bully, to change their external situation, to escape and move away. And at its worst, of course, the victim even begins to collude with the bully. You know, if you've been in a situation where someone's been persecuting, being mean to you, and on one level you start joining in with it, either by telling yourself that you can't handle it, that it's too difficult, that it's too hard for you, or by accepting some of their criticisms and some of their meanness as if they're true. And then you start joining in, it starts becoming part of your internal monologue. But then, of course, the victim's there, and then there's usually another third person who steps in, the kind of superhero, rescuer, fix-it character, saying, I'm going to fix this for you. So in this case, our superhero is zooming in to come and fix the problem for that victim, which might be, if the person's lost their job, then maybe it's the rescuer might be sending them job adverts every day. If the victim has an alcohol problem, drinking too much, the rescuer might be making excuses for them, trying to cover it up. Or if the victim is beating themselves up in their heads, the rescuer might be like trying to be super, super positive and trying to make everything right for them. And doing that to focusing all their energy on looking after that victim. So you get all these three characters in a kind of a triangle of the persecutor, the victim, and the rescuer. And what I'd like to notice is that everybody is stuck in this scenario. Nobody is free. The persecutor is stuck because usually the reason they're being mean and bullying and persecuting is because they've not dealt with their own issues. They've had a bad day, and so instead of dealing with that negative feeling, that difficult feeling, they're taking it out on someone else. They've had a bad patch of their lives, they've had a difficult upbringing, whatever it might be. Instead of dealing with that directly, they've given up that power and they're placing it all their energy into blaming someone, which is the victim role. The victim's stuck because he or she has given up their power. He's not willing to take responsibility. He's not willing to do what they can do to help themselves. And the rescuer doesn't have any power because he or she is putting all their energy into looking after the victim and none of their energy into looking after themselves. So all three characters, all three people in this kind of scenario, perhaps you can think in your mind to when you've noticed this coming up. If you're watching this video, I'm guessing that your default is probably to go to that rescuing position of trying to look after someone else. Everyone has their defaults, their things that they tend to gravitate to. If you're watching this, you probably flip into rescuer mode and get really drawn to someone who's acting like a victim. It can be like two magnets that just kind of pull each other together. Because of course I introduced them to you one by one, but they're just out there in the world, all of us with our little default patterns, and when a north and south pole of a magnet come close to each other, they get attracted together and locked into that position, that dynamic. And the rescue is also interesting to me and to you in terms of people pleasing and codependency, because it's less clear, because we're told to be kind, right? We're told to be considerate, we're told to help people out, and that's true. But when you turn into a rescuing pattern and it gets stuck, then it can actually be really, really damaging. Not only to you, but to other people. You've had the experience of it being damaging to you when you've been helping and helping and helping and feeling more and more tired and more fed up. But you might also have noticed how sometimes when you help someone, you think you're just going to help them for a short period, you're going to fix their temporary problem, and then they're going to step into their power and take it from there. But that doesn't happen, right, does it? You help them for a short period, and then what happens is they actually want more help. Because what you've done is you've trained them to be helpless. You've made them more dependent on outside help and less able and willing to look after themselves. Which doesn't help you, but it doesn't help them either. It's a drain of power from them. Because there's a way in which the rescuer is actually sending the victim the same message as the persecutor. The persecutor's saying, you can't handle this, you're hopeless. The victim is saying, yes, it's true, I can't handle it, I'm hopeless. And as the rescuer, when you're jumping in to fix a problem for someone and to help them out, at least superficially help them out, you're also sending them a message underneath that of, I'm helping you because I don't believe you can sort this out for yourself either. Everybody's getting disempowered and everybody's getting stuck. And what you think of as helping, in inverted commas, might not actually be helping in the long term. Not you, certainly, and quite probably not the other people either, because what you're doing is perpetuating this negative, stuck state for everybody. And the last thing I'd like you to notice about this is that anybody can be in any of the roles. We move around them. So you might have had the experience of helping someone and helping, and then they don't appreciate you and they're not grateful enough. So then you get kind of angry with them and you resent them. And then some point later, you're blowing your top at them. I can't believe that you won't even help me with this after all the things I've done for you. And then you've turned into the persecutor, right? Now you're giving them a hard time. And then you have a big row, it all goes horribly wrong. And then you're on your own and you're sad and overwhelmed. And you start telling yourself it's absolutely hopeless. However hard I try, everything always goes wrong. And now you're in the victim mode. And it seems like you've tried everything, but actually all you've done is go round and round these same three positions. When you can see that and see that happening, then suddenly you're able to start stepping out of it when it does happen. Because it's going to carry on happening, right? But what we can do is spot it and start changing it so that you can have other options in your behavior and make the problem smaller and smaller and smaller anytime it comes up. So let's look at the flip side of that. Like, instead of everyone being stuck, this is a triangle of autonomy and empowerment. And the first part of that is the victim who's saying, I'm helpless, I'm powerless, there's nothing I can do. Switching into what David Emerald calls the creator stance, which is the question of, what do I want? What do I want to create? So here I've got a picture of a potter who's there at his pot, thinking of what he'd like to create in his life. The persecutor can switch from being a persecutor into a challenger, which I always think of as like a personal trainer who's saying, come on, I know you can do better, you're the champ, get on with this, you can go faster, you can give me another 10 press-ups, come on, you can do it. So it's it's a challenging thing, but it's based on a belief, an encouragement of someone to do better, rather than criticizing and blaming them for what they're not doing. So ultimately, it's a constructive thing. And a challenger could be a situation. It could be a situation that comes up in your life that's asking you to stretch yourself, to step out of your comfort zone and do more. And the rescuer can switch from being a rescuer and fixing everything for someone into being a coach. The person who is helping the creator figure out how they're going to do it. Great, so how are you going to do that? If you want to start getting out of that stuckness, you need to spot when you've slipped into one of the victim, rescuer, persecutor modes and start getting out of them. So let's look at the rescuer coach thing first. So when you notice that someone's trying to get you to help them more than you naturally want to, and you notice that urge to step in and fix it, what I want you to remember is to switch that into becoming a coach. So that means being curious and asking questions about how someone else is going to do this. So how are you going to do that? What attracts you to that? What's important to you about that? How long do you think it will take? These are all really great questions to ask someone, and it helps the creator figure out what the problems are. So you're helping, but you're keeping the power with them. The second thing you can do is when someone tries to make you be a rescuer, like someone with a victim mentality turns up and they're trying to get you to rescue them, is to spot what's happening. Having watched this video, you can see, aha, I can see this situation is trying to drag me back into that hopeless triangle. So learn to say no. Learn to say no, not because you're being mean, but because you want to avoid everybody getting stuck again. Because now you can see the most helpful thing you can do is to allow the victim to become a creator and to have that power in their lives. And by saying no, you're saying yes to yourself, and you're saying yes to the belief that they can handle this for themselves. I'm not saying never help anybody. I'm just saying if you have a strong tendency to do that too much, you probably need to rein that in quite a lot and see what happens. And the third thing you can do is to learn how to empathize without doing anything. So if someone brings you a problem, instead of jumping in with advice and trying to fix it and doing it for them, you give them the emotional empathy without taking over. So you can say things like, oh, that sounds really hard. That must be really difficult for you. I can see what a struggle that is for you. So you're keeping their life in their life and your life in your life. And that's going to feel kind of weird for you because you're going to have a strong urge to jump in and do what probably you think of as real helping. Having thought this through in this video, what I'm hoping is you can see how that practical help can in the long term be quite disempowering to people and, of course, as you know, be very damaging to you as well. But then when you've helped too much and you're kind of feeling resentful and annoyed with the other people and you're in that persecutor mode, how can you switch from being a persecutor mindset into a challenger mindset? Well, the first thing you can do is to remind yourself that whatever's happened, if you overhelped, if you tried too much, you can remind yourself that you chose to do that. Other people might have asked you to do it, might have persuaded you to do it, but ultimately you stepped into that. And if you stepped in and you did it and you didn't want to do it, then that's kind of your mistake, not theirs. So, and I say that not to let them off the hook or to blame you, but to give you a way to stop getting stuck in the resentment and anger that can come from having helped more than you genuinely wanted to. You can start switching into a challenger mindset. So that might be going to other people, setting them challenges about what they can do for themselves. So you're loosening that up again. Might be setting a challenge for yourself to choose one person to say no to and actually do that. Might be learning to be more assertive. It might be setting yourself the challenge of doing something for yourself that you would find rewarding every day. And lastly, switching from a victim to a creator mindset. So the victim mindset is, I'm helpless, I'm hopeless, there's nothing I can do. The creator mindset, like our potter there, is asking yourself the question, well, what do I want? It's a very simple question, but it's bringing to mind a whole different set of resources. Instead of focusing all your energy on the problem that you have, it's bringing your energy to what you would like to create. Then you can switch into some coaching questions you could ask yourself, like, how am I going to do that? What resources do I need? Who could I ask to help me? And if you've been like a rescuer, been in that rescuing mode a lot, then asking for help is going to be a big challenge for you because you probably don't do it, right? I know. You've been avoiding asking for help because it makes you feel uncomfortable. So this is a challenge for you to find people you can ask for help to help you create something that you would really want in your life. And if that feels too overwhelming, like big things can sometimes, you can break it down into little steps. So instead of thinking, I'd like to run my own business, and then feeling overwhelmed because it's too far away, just think of, well, what's the next baby step that I could take to move me closer towards that goal? If you want to learn a musical instrument, it might be finding a YouTube video of someone teaching you how to play a certain song. So that's something you can do, right? Actually being able to play it might take a while. You can still do that first step. So when you have this insight and you see it happening, you'll see this drama triangle, this stuck persecutor, victim, rescuer triangle turning up over and over again. And having looked at it and watched this video, I've given you some ways in which you can flip out yourself out of any of these roles once you've spotted it into being a challenger, a creator, and a coach. But change in your life doesn't happen on an internet video. It happens in your actual life. So what I'd like to do now is to write down 2 insights from everything we've talked about and one thing that you're going to actually do as a result of watching this video. To turn yourself from just being a passive watcher to writing it down so you're taking steps in your own life. You can write it on a piece of paper, write it in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you write anything, ask any questions. I always answer all comments personally, so I'll be able to help with that. You can write them down on a piece of paper, write them down on the comment section below. If you write in the comments, I'll answer them personally. So ask any questions that you'd like to. If you'd like more things like this, then join my email list at roadsbackhome.co.uk. And if there's a friend who you think would benefit from this, why not forward it to them? Send them the video. And that's kind of cool for them because they can get to learn something, get to find their way out of a problem. But it's cool for you too, right? Because then you've got someone to discuss with, someone who you can use to bounce ideas off and integrate this into your life, and you can become a coach and challenger for each other as you start creating the kinds of things that you want to create in your lives. So take your time. Don't try and change the world in one day. You can start creating the kinds of things that you want to create in your life, one step at a time, whatever pace is right for you. It's going to be great.